Well, welcome to this week's edition of the Cardinal Podcast. Rob Rains, STLSportsPage.com. Pleased to be joined again by Mike Rains. We're checking out some new technology today, trying to make some improvements here on the podcast. So hopefully it all comes through okay and everybody enjoys it. So first of all, I want to make sure everybody knows that you can now subscribe to our YouTube channel. Can't believe I'm telling people to subscribe to my YouTube channel, but that's what we are in the 2024 season getting underway. So you can do that, STLSportsPage.com. Also, of course, the links will be up other place on the site as well. So please do that. And also at the same time, you can be signing up for our newsletter. New one will be out either later today or tomorrow. All the highlights and stuff that we put in there, a lot of stuff that doesn't even appear elsewhere on the website. So if you sign up for that, it'll come right into your email there. And of course, the thanks as well to all of our sponsors for making this possible, led by our great relationship with Drury Hotels and AAA Travel of Missouri. Mike, how are you?
I'm good. Yeah. Glad to be back. And hopefully we got the technical glitches worked out.
Your audio sounds very good. So hopefully that was the one problem we had a week ago. So hopefully we've solved one problem at a time, 1 week at a time. We'll get there. Maybe by the end of the season, we'll have it all figured out. So, of course, this winter warm-up wrapped up just a couple of days ago. We got that all out of the way, and a lot of interesting comments from a lot of different people came through the media room there. A lot of the players, Manager Ollie Marmol, John Mozeliak, Bill DeWitt Jr., and Bill DeWitt III, were all in the room with reporters. So, my number one takeaway, and I'm curious what your reaction was to everything you read and saw, but my number one takeaway was that it seems like there is a hunger and desire not only among the management team of the Cardinals, but the players as well, to kind of forget about everything that happened last year. I mean, Brendan Donovan was one guy who came out and said, you're going to see a much hungrier team on the field in 2024.
Yeah, I think that was one of the big takeaways. Was a lot of people were excited with, the comments that Donovan made and how he kind of seemed like a leader to step up there. And I thought that was big. I think the other one that was big to me is that, obviously we knew it was probably happening, but to hear it out of the mouth of both Jordan Walker and Mason Wynn, that they've been working all off season with Oquendo and really trying to, focus on their defense. And, Walker's really been focusing on right field better and stronger. And he added some weight. And so, I think all of those things come in really well. I think the other thing that was a big takeaway was just listening to Lance Lynn for the first time since coming back. And, one thing that I think is going to be interesting watching this year is, Lance Lynn is not a guy that's going to sit back and be quiet, like some of the former Cardinal guys, right? He's going to come out and say what he feels and how he thinks and doesn't care who he makes mad.
And I think Sonny Gray falls into that category too, even though he's not a former Cardinal. This is his first year on the club. He does have a relationship with some guys. I mean, he and Lance Lynn were teammates in Minnesota a couple of years ago. So he feels like he and Lance are on the same page. And I think he's not going to be a guy that's going to shy about giving his opinion as well. And the fact that he's such a competitor is, like, one of the things that Ollie Marmol pointed out was that he loves that about him, that I think he's going to kind of set the tone for that pitching staff as well.
It's going to be a little bit different in the clubhouse this year, right? Losing Waino and losing Yachty is a different presence, but I think Lance Lynn is going to be a big guy in that clubhouse. I think Sonny Gray is going to be a big guy. And the other one who's very outspoken as well is Wilson Contreras. So you've got three guys that have a little bit more fire and attitude to them that are kind of the opposite of Goldie and Arenado, right? Those guys just play hard, put their head down, and go about their business. And the other three are not that way.
And Donovan said he always tries to be a leader by example because of how hard he plays. But I think he's not going to be afraid to voice his opinion a little bit. I think he got had a unique vantage point last year because after he got hurt and had to have the surgery and missed the last couple of the seasons, he wasn't around the ball club a lot. I mean, he was rehabbing in Florida, watching the games on television. So I think he kind of gained a new perspective a little bit about what he was being away from and the impact he can have on his teammates when he's there.
And I do think it's going to be a little bit different than last year, right? Because you got some of those guys that are healthy and coming back. And, if we can take what they're saying to heart, and we hope we can, Donovan seems really excited about wanting to get back there and be around the full season. Mm-hmm. And then you've also got guys like Gorman who've had a little bit more time up here that can kind of, I don't want to say relax, but start to get into their own a little bit. And, I think it's an exciting time looking forward and getting closer to the season.
And the one thing we know is probably not going to happen that happened a year ago is Contreras' first half of the season. And I think you can say whatever you want about, people throwing him under the bus and blaming him for the pitching problems and things like that. I'm not even talking about that. I'm just talking about any player that changes clubs, that has to come to a new club, that is a starting player expected to play a key role. it's invariable that they struggle. I mean, Nolan Arenado did it the first few months that he was in St. Louis after being traded from Colorado. Paul Goldschmidt did it. And I think even a free agent probably even has it to a higher level than a trade candidate. So I really think that having that first year out of the way is going to make a big difference in Wilson Contreras' game.
And I also think not having the WBC this year is going to make a big difference too,
Right.
because you're going to have everybody in camp the entire time. So, you're not going to have guys shipping in and shipping out and being gone for a long period of time from all different teams across America and the world, right?
Right.
So I think that's going to play a big difference to have a full 6 weeks in spring with everybody there and everybody moving forward.
And Marmol even mentioned that when he was talking about it. He said they would try to go through infield drills last year during spring training, and you were doing it with players who you knew were not going to be on the team when the regular season began. So I think that's going to be a big factor. Visiting with Mike Raines here, Rob Raines, STLSportsPage.com, our weekly Cardinal podcast. One of the things I think another takeaway that I had from the comments of everybody who came through the room was Tommy Edman. A lot of guys coming off. I don't think anybody's coming off really major surgery. I mean, Dylan Carlson had the ankle surgery at the end of last season. Burleson has a broken finger. You had a couple of, Donovan obviously was one we talked about, but his was a little bit, farther back. But Tommy Edman had the wrist surgery, and it seemed like of all those guys, he was the one who said he was not 100% sure he would be ready to go when spring training began.
Yeah, and I think that gives you a little bit of a reason to pause for a minute, But I think right now with Carlson right there as your fourth outfielder, I think you're probably okay if he was to miss a little bit of time, and you'd rather be on the front end than the back end with how versatile that Tommy's been, right? And again, you've got some lineup construction right now because you could bet Edman 1, you could bet Nootbaar 1. I don't know. I mean, there's probably a number of ways that could go with that. So he's probably the one guy that you're okay with if he was to miss a little bit, but you'd like him healthy when you start spring for sure.
Right. I was going to say though, if you have a choice to say, okay, if you're going to be healthy on day one of spring training or day one of the regular season, I'll take day one of the regular season. So he's got time. He's got like at least 6 weeks. I mean, well, it's still 2 months now, over 2 months until the ball drops for good out in LA on whatever March 28th or whatever it is, the day that opening day is. So he's still got time. Yeah, and I think he didn't express doubt about it. He just said, "I don't know," so I haven't started swinging the bat yet. So
yeah, no, I think
go ahead. I'm sorry.
I think that's true too.
The other thing I was going to say, the other thing that was one of the topics that came up a lot during the warm-up was the whole situation of what's going on with the Cardinal television broadcast on Bally Sports Midwest. And a little resolution to that after the warm-up, actually on Wednesday. We're sitting there talking to everybody on Thursday that came out of the bankruptcy court hearings with Diamond Sports and with the different groups. And seems like everything now has been pretty much done to guarantee that the Cardinal broadcasts in 2024 are not going to change. They'll be exactly the same as they have been in the past few years. Now, what's going to happen in 2025 and beyond, still to be determined. But at least for 2024, it looks like everything's going to be just the same as it has been.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an interesting deal. And the question to me is that, Bally's really controls the local broadcast rights, not necessarily the streaming rights for some of these clubs. And so for Amazon to invest in them is kind of a unique angle for them, because are they just trying to get into where they have relationships with the clubs so then in 25 they can be the direct to consumer with each club through Prime, or are they trying to invest more in the cable side of things now with Bally? It's hard to say, right?
Yeah, I think that'll all kind of be determined. I think one thing we've always said is that there'll be a way for Cardinal fans to get the broadcast. I mean, I don't think we ever have to worry about that. How it changes, may change, but at least I think for this year, the good news is that it looks like everything's going to be okay. They're going to be able to make their full payment to the Cardinals and have the broadcast just as they have been. Now, that's bad news for some people who don't live, in the immediate St. Louis area and have access to that channel, or they've, cut the cords and don't have a cable kind of package anymore that they stream some of the other programming that they get. So there may still be an issue as far as that's concerned with getting them the broadcast this year, as well as still, I guess, the blackout rules that affect people like in Iowa or whatever will still be in place for one more year.
And that's a whole different. The blackout rules that are happening currently in baseball are just making it so much harder for the average fan to want to watch the game, and you're making it harder for the younger fans to grow the game.
Right. So hopefully that will all get worked out. Maybe this will be the last year we have to deal with that. But there's no reason somebody sitting in Des Moines, Iowa, is not allowed to watch a Cardinal game on his television. He's not allowed to watch the Cubs. He's not allowed to watch the Twins. He's not allowed to watch the Brewers. He's not allowed to watch the White Sox. Iowa is the black hole of baseball. I mean,
Probably can't watch the Rockies either.
I don't. I mean, it's just crazy that they have all these rules that especially because you're paying for the game. If you buy MLB extra innings package or whatever, you're paying a fee to watch the games. So you ought to be able to watch them. It shouldn't make any difference.
For as much money that MLB wants to make, why wouldn't they have some sort of package where you can buy it? If you want to pay for it, pay for it.
Yeah. And especially if you're out of market. I mean, if you're not in the St. Louis market, there's no reason. Well, but that's a topic for another day, and we'll get into that down the road. But the one news, of course, coming up today, the Cardinals announced that on Friday, 10 a.m. St. Louis time, opening day tickets, April 4th against the Marlins. Will be here before we know it. 3:15 first pitch. Those tickets go on sale for just that individual day on Friday at 10 a.m. You can buy them online. You can buy them by the phone. Or you go to the ballpark and buy them in person at the ticket office.
And opening day in St. Louis is truly a tradition like no other. And the Clydesdales are there and all of the Hall of Famers and the Red Jackets. And if you haven't been, put it on your list because it's absolutely worth going. So, yeah, be sure to be ready tomorrow at 10 a.m. to get your tickets for opening day. And
I guess, too, the one thing is, of course, the Cardinals open on the road in Los Angeles, then go to San Diego. So they will play, a week's worth of games before they get back to Busch Stadium. It's not the same as opening day when it's game one of the regular season, but still, actually, the weather might be a little better if you're playing here in April 4th instead of March 28th. So,
oh, yes, it will be.
Right? So that one thing, the other thing that kind of came away that I kind of skipped over, one of the other items I wanted to mention about reaction to the winter warm-up is when you listen to John Mosaic and some of the other people talk, it does seem like they still have a little bit of interest and apparently budget room to pick up another relief pitcher that if one is available that they feel like fits their needs here between now and the start of spring training.
And probably not the Josh Hader type player because that money's probably going to be a little bit too high, although a lot of us would really like that. It's probably going to be someone in that, middle innings, a 6, 7, 8 type guy that, can come in, maybe a lefty specialist of some sort, but somebody that won't necessarily be a big name to a lot of fans here.
And I think that's probably a good addition. They have bulked up the bullpen this year. I think they've added at least 4 guys who have a chance to come in and win a spot in that bullpen this year. And there are still some guys available that I think, especially now as you get closer to the start of February, closer to the start of spring training, some of those guys who are still out there on the market who aren't, big names, aren't big, multi-million-dollar a year contract, 3 or 4 year contract guys, they might start to get nervous a little bit about where they're going to land. So maybe they'll take a bargain deal or a pillow deal for 1 year so they know they have a place to pitch. And maybe the Cardinals will be able to luck out and get somebody that they maybe didn't think they were going to have a chance to get.
Well, would you say we're probably 2 weeks away from guys like Blake Snell and Montgomery and Cody Bellinger having to kind of have their hand forced in the favor of the teams at this point?
If they want to be somewhere when spring training begins, yeah.
It's kind of surprising to me that none of them have signed yet and what they're waiting for. And maybe some of the teams are finally saying, we're going to, if you don't want to play, fine, we're not going to pay you that.
In the common denominator is they're all Scott Boras clients.
Well, we all know how we feel about him.
And he's not afraid to go into February with a guy unsigned. I mean, he's done it before.
So. He's done it before, and he'll do it again.
Yes, probably will. So one of the other things coming up in this week that I wanted to kind of give everybody out there a little bonus sneak peek for tuning into the podcast today is the Hall of Fame voting for the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown will be announced on Tuesday, the 23rd. I've had a ballot again now for many years, and always appreciate that honor. Always appreciate it and give it serious consideration. That's who I'm going to vote for. And everybody always says, who are you going to vote for? So we're going to give you a little teaser to my Hall of Fame ballot. I voted for 7 players this year. You can vote for up to 10. I've never felt the need to actually vote for all 10, but I did vote for 7 this year, and I'm going to tell you right now who 6 of them are. But the teaser is that to find out who the 7th player was that I voted for and why I voted for that player, you're going to have to read the website on Monday. I'll post a column on Monday explaining why my other vote, my 7th vote, was for somebody who I'm not revealing yet today. So you can try and look at the ballot and guess and figure out all you want who it is and why I voted for him, but you can read the column on Monday and find out. But the other 6 guys I think are pretty much self-explanatory. I think all 6 have a real good shot of getting into the Hall of Fame, if not this year, years coming up. And I'll just tell them, and then Mike, we can discuss it just a little bit. And I guess it's in alphabetical order, kind of. Adrian Beltre, first year on the ballot. I voted for him. Todd Helton, another year on the ballot. Andrew Jones, Gary Sheffield. This is Billy Wagner. This is Sheffield's last year on the ballot. Billy Wagner is the other one that I voted for. So that's what is that 5 of this? The other newcomer, Joe Mauer of the Twins. So that's the 6. I think Sheffield will be the interesting one. Billy Wagner has one more year left after this year, but I think all 6 of those guys. Beltre, I think, is a no-brainer. I think Helton should get in this year. He was close last year. Beyond that, the other guys will probably be close, but maybe not anybody else getting in. Your reaction to those 6 votes?
Yeah, Helton was the highest returning at 72% or something like that last year, so he probably should get in. The other question, obviously, the guys you voted for, I agree with. But the question on the newcomer list, for St. Louis fans, is Matt Holliday. Mm-hmm. It's probably not there, but I wouldn't be surprised if he got enough votes to stay on the ballot.
You have to have 5% of the vote to get on to remain on the ballot for next few years, and it's interesting because there is a lot of history of guys who were very good players, maybe not quite Hall of Famers, although actually some of these guys have gone into the Hall of Fame, who were one and done. They only were on the ballot for 1 year. Ted Simmons was one because of the fact he did not get the minimum 5% of the vote. So that's always an interesting. As much as you look for who got the 75% of the vote to see who got in, it's also interesting to see who fell under the 5% mark. And even a couple of guys like Andrew Jones, Sheffield, Wagner, their first year on the ballot, they barely got over that 5%. So that they would have been close. And now I think eventually they're all 3 going to get elected to the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, it's interesting because a lot of people weigh who else is against them on the ballot, right? And so when you're looking at the other newcomers on the list, the other, quote unquote cardinal favor on the list is Brandon Phillips as well, too, right? And so another player who had a good career, not a Hall of Famer, but there's a lot of guys there that were good players, such as Matt Holliday, but probably not Hall of Famers.
Well, and I didn't vote for him this year. I'll say this: it's not the guy that I'm going to be writing about on Monday, but Carlos Beltran, another former Cardinal that I think probably deserves to be in Cooperstown. He's had a little bit of a taint to his career because of the whole sign stealing episode in Houston and his involvement in that cost him his job to possibly manage the Mets. So I think time will heal that a little bit, and I think he's probably still now a few years away from getting in, but I think he will get in. Obviously, other big names on the ballot, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, have never voted for any of those guys, don't intend to vote for any of those guys. So it will be interesting to see eventually what happens to their Hall of Fame chances. And there's 2 schools of thought on that. I mean, whether you want to vote for those kind of guys or don't. And that's one of the things about the Hall of Fame vote. It's an individual ballot. You have your own, opinions and your own resources to decide what you want to do. Guys who have been active members in the Baseball Writers Association for 10 or more years are the players who are over 400 people in the country voting this year for who gets into the Hall of Fame. So it's always an interesting reaction to see who does and who doesn't.
And I think the steroid era is always going to cause that question mark and that asterisk, right? Because would that player, for example, A-Rod, have been as good of a player as he would without that? Or, some of these other guys, Barry Bonds had the issue for the longest time, right? So would they have been the player they were without that? And if you can't definitively say yes, how are you able to vote for them for the Hall of Fame?
Right. And I think the other thing is always interesting, too, about that ballot is, and we mentioned Beltre and Joe Mauer, I suspect both have real good shots of going in this year, their first year on the ballot. To me, there is, and somebody's, I've heard this argument for a long time that people will say, well, if he's on the Hall of Fame ballot, it doesn't make any difference what year you win. If you're going to vote for a guy as a Hall of Famer, you should vote for him every year. I still think there's something special about the first ballot. I still think there's something about guys who go into the Hall of Fame as a first-year ballot. And there are guys that are on that ballot that I may vote for in the future years. Chase Utley, Jimmy Rollins, we'll see. But I just didn't see, especially Utley's the other first-year guy really this year, that it was worthy of a first-year ballot vote. So, rightly or wrong.
As we look down the road of ending last season to going forward to this season, there's 2 future potential first ballot Hall of Famers in Yachty and Albert, and Albert is probably going to be unanimously one, and Yachty will be close. But so of future interest to Cardinal fans at some point, there will be something special about that first year ballot.
You can book your trip to Cooperstown in what would be 2028. Is that the 5-year year? 2027, right? Because they didn't play last year, so the 5-year window begins. They'll be eligible for the Cardinal Hall of Fame 2 years before they could go into Cooperstown. So you got 2 years left on the Cardinal Hall of Fame cycle before they would be eligible for that. We actually had that committee meeting this week as well. So the Veterans Committee pick, as well as who's going to be on the ballot for the fan vote in the Cardinal Hall of Fame, that'll be coming out soon. So, well, the interesting thing this week, we'll watch and see what happens with the Cardinals with any potential roster moves between now and the 1st of February or so. Guys, I think probably some of them are probably leaving directly from the winter warm-up to head down to Florida. So you're going to start seeing reports of guys showing up down there. I think Jordan Walker's already been down there a lot of the winter. Brendan Donovan's down there a lot of the winter. So we won't be too long here. February 14th, the first pitcher and catcher workout. February 19th, the first overall team workout, full squad workout. So it'll be here before we know it.
The other thing that Cardinals fans can look forward to this year too is, it had been talked about before that Adam Wainwright was going to join Fox. Well, they, officially announced that this morning. So you're going to see him on a decent amount of Cardinal games this year, because I know the Cardinals have a good amount of Fox games. They've got one early April coming up too. So, you'll still get their dose of Waino, and we'll see how he does on the broadcast.
That's right. So I'm sure he's going to do very well. We've seen enough of him on some of the postseason broadcasts to know that he's going to be just a natural for that. So, Mike, thanks for joining us again on this week's Cardinal Podcast. Again, thank you to all of our sponsors, AAA Travel of Missouri, Drury Hotels. Don't forget to sign up for our YouTube, subscribe to our YouTube channel. All the podcasts will be up there, as well as sign up for our weekly newsletter, other places on stlsportspage.com. And don't forget to check out my Hall of Fame column coming up to be posted on Monday. For Mike Raines, this is Rob Raines reporting, stlsportspage.com.